Hey guys, so we're back and there's a lot more writing on the board this time. So the top half is going to cover chapter 10. So these two things, chapter 10, and then these two are chapter 11. Okay, so for chapter 10, both of these are, so we're talking about design studies now, okay? That's what this whole thing is about basically. And so there's two basic forms of independent group design, and then a bunch of unnecessary exclamation marks. So the first basic form is post-test only, and the second basic form is pre-test post-test. So for post-test only, the definition is in blue, and it says the participants are randomly assigned to independent variable groups and are tested on the dependent variable once. So I underlined that in red because that's important. That's like the main basically difference between the post-test only and then the pre-test post-test is that here we're testing the dependent variable once. So this is our example. We have a random assignment, then we have our two IVs, and then our DV is measured once for the first group, or the first condition. I think that's how Dr. R might have given some of his examples. So group 1 or condition 1, same thing. DV is measured once, and then again, random assignment, IV condition 2 or group 2, and then the DV is measured for this separate one. Okay, then some quick points about post-test 1. So post-test design only, it satisfies all three rules of causation. So that's important. Again, that's temporal precedence, covariance, and internal validity. And then the second point here is that there are no design confounds and no selection effects if this post-test is done properly. So it's a good design, even though it seems pretty simple. So there's no issues with it. Okay, and then the second one here, again, we have our definition in blue. So participants are randomly assigned to two different groups and are tested on the dependent variable twice. So again, key point here, post-test, we have our DV measured once. Pre-test, post-test, DV is measured twice. So the first time is measured once before exposure to IV, and then the second one is after the exposure. So here, again, in red, the DVs. So we have a random assignment. DV is measured for the first IV condition. So we have our DV measured, then our IV group or condition 1, and then the DV is measured again. Then second random assignment, DV is measured, IV group or condition 2, and then the DV is measured again. So yeah, that's basically, so these are the setups, in case you guys are wondering what that is. That's how you would run these specific designs. Then some quick points here. So you can use pre-test, post-test. That's what I just wrote, pre-post. You can use this design when you're explaining equivalence in a random assignment. That all I'm saying right there is that where basically the researchers are just showing you that the random assignment, like everybody is equal, we're all good, we're all happy, awesome. So second little quick point to keep note of is that we use this pre-test, post-test design to track performance over a long time. So longitudinal studies, if you guys remember, the study that takes place over years and years. So this would definitely be a good test to use in that case. And then, okay, why do we care? So is one better than the other? No, sadly. So it just depends, as it's written here. It really just depends on the study. Even though this might seem like a simple form, post-test only is fine in some time depending on certain designs or certain experiments. Otherwise, pre-test, post-test is also just as good. So that's the pre-test. That's the post-test only and pre-test, post-test. Those two separate designs, and then they're both. It just really just depends on when to use what. Okay, cool. Hopefully I didn't speed through that too fast. Yeah, and just the information in case y'all need that. Okay, cool. So now down here is our little topic from chapter 11, which is right there. So the way that this is noted, it's the same thing. So it's called one group pre-test / post-test design. It can be called that, or it colloquially, the way we always talk about it it's called the really bad experiment. Okay, sad face. We don't want to do this. So just how here I showed you guys how the experiment is set up. Here we can see that there's just one pre-test. We have our treatment and one post-test. So why why is this bad, right? Like, it is bad. If you haven't already noticed, it's bad because there is no comparison group and there's no control. So it's not an experiment without those things. And this is basically like, if we don't have anything to, if we don't have anything to compare it to, you know what I'm saying? We don't even know what we're measuring at this point, and we don't know if there's actually any difference or if there's any effects. So it's not really a good design. So that's why it's called the really bad experiment, but it's also known as one group pre-test, post-test. So definitely keep those two things in mind, that they're both the same thing. Yes. And so another quick thing, if you're wondering, okay, wait, like this is kind of similar to like this stuff. The main difference between why this one is good and this one is not good is because there's no comparison group, right? So here you see how we're measuring the DV twice. That's why this one's awesome. We're measuring the DV twice. That's great. Here we're not doing that, so it's not so much. Okay. And now the fourth topic, the last one. So we have power. So power is mentioned in chapter 11. And here you don't really need to remember that. It's an aspect of statistical validity. I just abbreviated statistical. Yeah, you don't really like the what's in blue is like the main thing to remember here, and red. You don't really need to remember that little piece. But power. Okay, so the power of a study. So I would think about power in these kinds of proportional definitions. So the up arrow just means that the higher the power. Okay, you could just think about it as that. So the higher the power, the more likely it is to find a difference in levels. So right in the levels of our IV. So that is one definition, one way to think of power. And another way is that so the higher the power, the more likely it is to statistically observe a significant difference or a significance between conditions. So here, that's why I didn't need you guys to remember the statistical validity thing, because it's mentioned again here. So again, the main thing here is that if your study has a lot of power compared to a little bit of power, you're more likely to find a difference in what you're measuring, right? Kind of makes sense. In the book, they describe it, or they give you an example using a flashlight. Like, let's say you have a really weak flashlight and you're like pointing it in your room or your backyard. You're not going to be able to find statistically significant things, right? You're not going to be able to find anything. However, the higher the power, the better the flashlight, the more you're likely to find differences and things like that. Now, in red here, this is an important point. Well, I mean, you know, all this is important, but so I wrote, studies with lots of power can find even small effect sizes. Now, that's important because maybe whatever is in a specific study, you know, it's very hard to find an effect size. So even if it's very small, if you have a lot of power in your study, you can find that potentially. So how do we increase the power in our study? There's two ways. We can increase the sample size. This is the main way I would remember this way. So increase the sample size is one way, right? More people you ask, more participants you have, you're probably going to have higher power. And then another way to increase it is increasing the size of experimental effects. So that's just increasing the size of the effects. I don't think you guys have to remember the second one as much, but definitely remember increasing sample size, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. If you increase the sample size, you're gonna increase the power. Oh yeah, last little bit. Sometimes there's no effect, LOL. So sometimes, you know, after all this experimenting and all this, you know, writing of, you know, literature and all this jazz, like there you just don't have an effect, and that's totally okay. But yeah, that's just something also to keep in mind. And that, I think, covers it, guys. Cool. Hopefully that wasn't too terrible. And yeah. Okay, bye.